The streets of Boston have come alive with the cadence of runners in rhythm, preparing for tomorrow's 116th running of the Boston Marathon. And so we welcome you again to Day 3 of RunCenter, presented by Adidas. Tony Revis joining you again from the town Stove and Spirits, joined today by the Executive Director of the Boston Athletic Association and a qualified Boston Marathoner in his day, Tom Brook. Great to see you. Of course, the big story at today's Boston Marathon is the weather. It's been an ongoing story for the better part of a week. The forecasters have changed from the low 60s to the mid 70s. They seem to have settled on spiking temperatures up in the upper 80s. It's dangerous weather for a marathon. We've seen it here at the Boston Marathon, but yesterday the BAA has announced an option, a deferment option for the runners. Explain your thinking in that.
What we want to have is a group of people who can either run safely, or if they think that there's any risk to themselves, decide that the safest thing is not to run. What we have done is really two things. One, we've given people the option, if they have any health condition or any concern about their own fitness for any reason at all, to not run and defer. If they simply pick up their number and don't start the race, we'll accept them as entrants next year without any further need to qualify. Secondly, we've decided to keep the finish line open for another hour so that people have that extra hour to come in and finish. For a great many of our runners, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. They want to be recorded as a Boston Marathon finisher and get a medal. We don't want someone rushing in very hot conditions to get that. So we extended the finish line closing by an hour to give people more than a 2-minute per mile cushion in their pace in order to get there and get that finish.
But as Tom well knows, these are very motivated people, and you'll do things in a group of 26,000 you would never do on your own or with just your training group back home, and so you almost have to protect them against themselves.
That's precisely correct, and that's why we took these precautions and did it early.
They have to pick up their number. That's the one proviso. They can't just not run. They have to go and pick up their number, and then when they're not recorded as having started the race, that's the deferment.
That's the process that we have established. That's right. The big message from us for everybody is take responsibility for yourself. We have upped everything: water, ice, emergency services, transport, everything. As much as services and support can be provided, it has been done. The cooperation we have received from everybody has been magnificent. And if this was a year when you wanted to be an unofficial runner, a bandit, please don't do it. Please have respect for the people who have entered. Don't take what they worked so hard to earn on this day.
Great. Tom, thanks for joining us. The best of luck tomorrow.
Revis, good fun. Thanks.
Absolutely. Competition actually did begin on Boylston Street today at the BAA 5K and Invitational and High School Mile. And Ben True actually defended his title. Dartmouth grad, went from a 14:07 time last year. This year there's prize money. He dropped it down to 13:40. That's what money will do for an athlete. Ben True won the men's race. Wortnesh Kadani from Ethiopia, who was second at the Carlsbad 5,000 a couple of weeks ago, set a PB of 15:12 on the women's side. And our Mario Fraioli talked with our champions after their race.
The race, played a little differently than it did last year. It was a little bit quicker from the start, and definitely we picked it up a little bit more in the middle. And it was a lot of fun. And I was a little worried with about a mile to go that maybe I just didn't have my legs today, but this finishing straight is very long, and I think a lot of people forget how long it is. So I was just biding my time on the way down and just trying to make sure I had something in reserve to be able to get by him at the end.
Yeah, Worknesh just took it out pretty hard the first mile, and myself and he's tried to keep up with her, but and then on the downhill and just after mile 1, she kind of just went really fast and got away from us and kind of put a big gap in, and then the gap kind of stayed the same then from there to the finish. And I think we tried to work together to get the gap a bit closer, but she was very strong today, so yeah.
Also on the docket today, the BAA Invitational Mile, 3 laps on Boylston over to Newberry and back. And in the men's race, Boston College graduate Tim Ritchie, a sub-4-minute miler indoor this season, led early. But in the end, it was the 2008 Australian Olympian Collis Birmingham proved the strongest. His winning time 4:06, followed by Kyle Miller of the United States in 4:11.4. And Ben Bruce, who ran the 5K last year, dropped down to the mile this year and ran 4:11.7 in third place. On the women's side, the big story, Morgan Usini from the Mammoth Track Club and Adidas world number one at 1,500 meters, the first American woman to hold that distinction in 25 years. Only the second woman from America in history to be world number one at the metric mile. Well, Morgan controlled the race throughout, winning it in 4:43.8. Second place, our defending champion from Serbia, Marina Munkin. In third place, Gabrielle Anderson in 4:46.3. Now, elsewhere in the running world, the big news today, the Fortis Rotterdam Marathon, always one of the fastest courses in the world. But for our purposes, it was also the Olympic opportunity to make the Kenyan team for Moses Mosop, the Chicago champion and course record holder from last year, and second place here in Boston last Patriots Day. He went to Rotterdam looking for a world record attempt. The weather was good, but not absolutely perfect. However, they went through 1:01:37 at the halfway point. As I look at my split notes, that's the fastest half marathon split in marathon history. But in the end, it was Yamani Adane from Ethiopia battling Getu Faleke, also of Ethiopia, pushing Moses Mosop into third place. How do you like this? Third place, 2:05:02. We're calling it the most disappointing third place 2:05 in history because it essentially eliminates him from the Kenyan Olympic sweepstakes. A quick note, in Paris, we had a 2:05:11 marathon run there as well by Stanley Biwott of Kenya. So a great day of marathoning in Europe. Tomorrow they do it in Boston. All right, the question is, what are people going to do at the Boston Marathon? It's considered the trickiest of all the major marathon courses with the weather and the uphills and downhills. Well, what's the best advice you've ever had? That's what we sent Carrie Tollefson out to find out.
Hey Tony, it's the 116th running of the Boston Marathon. There's a wealth of knowledge out here, and I want to see what kind of advice these runners have been given. So Annie, you're getting ready to run the Boston Marathon. Have you run this race before?
My first Boston.
So what kind of advice have people been giving you?
I've heard take it easy for the first 10, don't go nuts on the downhill, and hold on to your butt in Newton. That's exact words.
Always to start a little bit slow because that first part's a downsy, but it's a little hard on the legs, and I can attest to that. Last year, I think it was about 3 weeks before I could stand up easily again from sitting.
To do a lot of training, to think about things like hydration, to think about pace, not go out too fast.
Obviously everyone talks about Heartbreak Hill, but I think, from 20 miles onwards or 30 Ks onwards, it's going to be tough for everyone, regardless if the hills or flat. So yeah, you're going to dig in there for sure.
Well, it's probably one of the most difficult marathon courses out there. So I would say maybe it's not a good day to try to go out for your best time. Just enjoy yourself. It's a very difficult race.
Just slow down and drink lots of fluid. I'm a firm believer in drinking lots of fluid before and during and all the way through.
And then after, maybe having a couple just to celebrate.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we'll have a great race on Monday.
Thank you.
So what's going to happen tomorrow? Well, time for predictions from our crack staff. And by the way, it's impossible to predict marathons. We're sallying forth nonetheless. Let's begin with Mario, followed by Carrie.
All right, Tony, two things are for certain here tomorrow. Number one, it's going to be hot. Number two, Jeffrey Mutai will be the man to beat. Not only did he run 2:03:02 here last year to record the fastest marathon ever run, he's won everywhere since then. Won the New York City Marathon last fall on a course record, and so far this year he's won 2 major half marathons. He won in Bogota, Colombia, very hot and humid race, and also in San Blas, Puerto Rico, another hot and humid race. So he's shown he knows how to win in those conditions. I don't think the weather's going to affect him too much. Challenging, however, could be Gebre Mariam from Ethiopia. Finished third here last year, 2010 New York City Marathon champion, said earlier this week, I am here to win, I did not come for second. The third part of that trifecta, Wilson Chebet. Won last year in Rotterdam, has been reported to be in great shape, and I know he's not going to let Mutai get away too easily. In the women's race, let's not forget about Caroline Kalel. She won here last year in 2:22:36, an exciting finish here on Boylston Street against American Desiree Davila. But not too far behind her was her countrywoman Sharon Kiprop, who finished 6 seconds back of Kalel last year here in Boston. Later in the year, she went on to get the bronze medal in the marathon at the World Championships, and then she also ran a 1:07:08 half marathon in November, so she is capable of the win here tomorrow. Last but not least in that equation is Fire Hawat Dado. She won the New York City Marathon last November. She also won the New York City Half Marathon last month, and she's shown that she knows how to win major races, and she is not going to go down without a fight.
Hey Tony, I'm going to give you my predictions of the 2012 Boston Marathon, and I'm sure they're similar to yours. You can't forget about last year's winner, Geoffrey Mutai. Not only did he win the 2011 Boston Marathon, but he is the fastest man ever over 26.2 miles. So he is my pick for this Monday. But behind him, Gebra Merriam. I think that guy could challenge the title. He won in his first marathon, the New York City Marathon. On the women's side, I'm going to go with the 1-2 punch from the New York City Marathon this past fall. Fiawat Dado and Bujanish Deba. I think these two women are going to push each other to cross that finish line 1 and 2.
Okay, it's now my turn. Well, I have to agree with Mario. I always go with the champion until that champion has been beaten. So Geoffrey Mutai, I think, might take his second Boston Marathon title. My other pick, Wilson Chebet from Kenya. He won both the Amsterdam and Rotterdam marathons last year. He's a 2:05 man, being highly touted by the people from Kenya. And my third man, Kenyan, but on his way to becoming an American citizen, a college student from University of Louisville, Wesley Career, a two-time Los Angeles Marathon champion, who set a PR of 2:06 last year, finishing second at the Chicago Marathon. Great guy. I think he's on top form. Now, on the women's side, I like the New York City Marathon champion Firawat Dado from Ethiopia. Firawat also won the New York Half in March in a very fast time against a very strong field. I think she's one of these athletes who's on the rise, on the come. Watch out for Firawat. She could be on fire. Next up, Ashu Kasim from Ethiopia. Ashu won the Xiamen China Marathon earlier this year in 2:23. But again, you talk to her handlers and the other people who follow the sport closely, and they say she is in phenomenal shape. Ashu Kasim, a name to watch. Also, Agnes Kiprop, 2:23 at the Frankfurt Marathon last year. She's from Kenya. Anything can happen, but those are three names on the women's side to pay close attention to. That'll wrap up RunCenter number 3 from here at the Boston Marathon, presented by Adidas. Now check out Competitor.com tomorrow for all the coverage of the Boston Marathon 2012, and follow us also on Twitter. Our handle there, RunCompetitor, for live race analysis and updates. And then finally, tomorrow night, join us on RunCenter when we'll wrap the whole thing up. See you then.